Have you ever lost photos or videos due to a failed hard drive or memory card? Today we're gonna fix that. Backing up your footage isn't cool, flashy, clickbaity, whatever you wanna call it, but I would argue it's one of the most important things we need to do as professional photographers and videographers. In this video, we're gonna break down my top 5 best practices for keeping your photo and video footage safe. We're gonna finish the video with my workflow on how to go from capture to final delivery to a client, ensuring that your images and video are backed up every step of the way. We're also gonna talk about backing up other accessory files, things like presets, LUTs, catalogs, project files, things like that, to ensure that from start to finish, every part of your data system is backed up and safe. Let's go ahead and dive in. My first and most important best practice is to realize that everything you care about should be stored in at least 2 locations. This begins at capture. If your camera has 2 memory cards, being sure that both card slots are full of a matching type of card and your camera is set to the backup mode is a great starting place. After that, ensuring that those cards do not get formatted or erased until the footage has been backed up on multiple hard drives. And those final files you deliver to a client should also be backed up in multiple places in case the client loses the files down the road and asks you for them again. Just keep in mind that I consider 2 places the minimum. I recommend actually 3 or more locations for those things that you absolutely cannot lose. Too many times I've seen students do a phenomenal job of copying their main drive to their backup drive, only to have both of those hard drives fail and end up losing everything because they were unwilling to have a 3rd copy of their data. This leads me to best practice number 2. Realize and respect that all types of storage media have a potential to fail. I think a lot of people put a lot of effort into buying very high quality hard drives and memory cards and even SSDs, and I think that there's a great kind of thought process behind that in we want to make investments in top quality equipment. The problem is I've seen very high-end hard drives fail right out of the box, and I've also seen low-end hard drives survive for years and years and years. At a certain point, it's not down to how much you spend, it's down to how well you treat that equipment, and a lot of it is actually beyond your control as the photographer or videographer, and understanding and respecting that all types of storage will fail at some point is very important. With that said, I still do recommend buying good quality hard drives, SSDs, and memory cards because they do have a larger chance of surviving longer, but that's not to say that there aren't exceptions to that. Case in point, if you go out and buy a super expensive Samsung SSD, it's not a guarantee that that drive won't fail within a few months of owning it. And that leads me to best practice number 3. Always have an off-site version of your data. Now, this used to mean having a 3rd hard drive or a 4th hard drive that you stored at a friend's house, at work, in a detached garage, in a safety deposit box, whatever you want to call it. And that's super awesome. It basically means that your off-site storage, your off-site backup is incredibly safe. I wouldn't recommend it as your only storage location because you have to download and upload footage to it. It's not fast, but it can be a great archived system of backing up your footage. There's all the popular cloud backup systems like OneDrive, iCloud, Google Drive, Dropbox, all of those, and those can work great for photographers. Another favorite of mine is Backblaze. If you're a photographer who commonly has one hard drive plugged into your computer and you're looking to back up the entire contents of that drive, Backblaze has a very competitive pricing structure that you might like. Now, when we start talking about what to back up, we're led to my best practice number 4. And this is to start to consider what is important to back up. Because obviously as a photographer or videographer, we think of, oh, our photos and our video footage. But there's actually a lot more to it than that if we're trying to look at a complete holistic backup strategy. Beyond your photos and videos, also remember that you have project files and catalogs, right? If you're using Lightroom Classic, that catalog file that contains your edits is almost just as important to back up as the photos themselves. Same with Adobe Premiere users or Final Cut users. Those project files that contain the cuts, the color grades, all of that, that can be just as important to keep safe as the original footage itself. Beyond that, remember that preferences, presets, LUTs, all of those additional accessory bits of information are also super important. When you switch to a new computer or you have a hard drive die, you don't want to lose all of your export presets or your develop presets in Lightroom, right? That would be a big deal to rebuild all of that information. So remember that there's photos, there's videos, there's catalogs, there's accessory files. There's all of these things that we need to keep safe. And that's not even to mention the files that you need to run your business, right? Think about the things on your internal hard drive, your documents, invoices, estimates, all of that stuff, correspondence with clients. That is equally as important to keep safe in the event of a failure of a hard drive. Tangerine LaCroix. So good. I would love LaCroix sponsoring RMSP's channel. That would be really cool. And finally, we get to best practice number 5, which is develop a consistent workflow that ensures that every part of your file system is backed up every step of the way. And this is what the remainder of this video is going to talk about. I'm gonna walk you guys through my backup workflow, talk a little bit about step 1, step 2, step 3, and how to achieve a good system for you. It is worth mentioning, however, that your backup workflow should be different than mine. You need to make a list of the files and folders and things that you specifically need to back up that work for you. I will tell you my system has worked well for me, being primarily a Lightroom Classic user and an Adobe Premiere Pro user. I will try to make some comments along the way that make it more generally applicable to everybody, but here's my system. Let's go ahead and take a look. So first off, my backup system starts in camera. My main camera is a Fuji X-T4 with 2 SD card slots. I always buy my memory cards in matched pairs, and I always run dual card slots with my camera on the backup mode, which basically means photo or video. Every time I take a photo or a video clip, it's sent to both cards. One really important note here. If I was a professional photographer or videographer and I was looking at buying a new camera, I would almost make dual card slots a requirement of a camera choice for my future. I can safely say that most of the failures and corruption of storage that I see as a teacher come from memory cards, not hard drives and SSDs. And it's so dangerous on a single memory card camera that if that card goes bad, you're losing all of those images potentially. If you're a wedding photographer, that means you've got to tell the bride and groom that you lost all of the photos from that day. Whereas if you had a dual memory card camera, you'd have a second backup as soon as you take the pictures. As soon as I'm ready to import my pictures, I open up my Lightroom catalog and I import all of my images. Alternatively, if I shot video, I'll open Finder and I'll drag all of my footage into a folder with the year, month, day that the footage was captured. Once that import is complete, I'll take that card out, put it back in my camera, but I won't format it yet. Now, the tendency at this point is to want to get started editing. I totally get it, right? You want to launch Premiere, you want to import that footage, start looking at it, start cutting it, start doing it. Don't do that yet. Instead, plug in your backup hard drive. Now, this might be a second external hard drive. If you choose to store your photos and videos on an external, you'll want another external to back up the first one. This might be your first external. Maybe it's a backup of your internal hard drive. Whatever it is, have a second hard drive that is an exact mirrored duplicate of your main drive. Then, using a program like SyncBack on the PC or Carbon Copy Cloner on the Mac, links in the description on how to use those programs, run a mirroring software that will basically take the contents of your main hard drive and duplicate it over to the contents of your backup hard drive. Now, the nice thing about these backup programs is they'll only copy the stuff that's changed. So generally, if you get in the habit of backing up routinely, this backup takes maybe 5 minutes. It's not a long process. As soon as this backup process completes successfully, that's when I'll take my camera and format both of those memory cards, because at that point my footage has been saved to multiple locations. I want to just interject here really quickly and say that if I was maybe shooting something that was higher stakes, right, for a really big client or something that absolutely could not be messed up, I probably would take one of those memory cards or both of those memory cards out, put a sticky note on them with what was captured on those cards, and not touch them until the final files were delivered to the client. This isn't stuff you want to mess around with, right? So taking extra precautions like that and having multiple sets of memory cards can be a really great way to safeguard yourself. Again, all of this video is about preventing embarrassment, right? You having to face up to a client and say, hey, I messed up, I lost all your footage. That's what we're trying to prevent. At this point, I'll edit my footage, right? Just like normal, I'll use Premiere Pro, use Lightroom, edit things up, make things look pretty, get it ready for client delivery. I'll deliver those files to a client, exporting them out, whatever program I'm using, and then I'm gonna run another backup to be sure that that main hard drive is backed up to a second drive, and all of those final files that I'm delivering to the client are backed up as well. And you all, that's my workflow. The key takeaway here is to remember, never format the card until you've backed up your footage on your computer. Now, there are a lot of options and varieties to this, right? If you're storing your footage on your internal hard drive, you could maybe have just one external using something like Time Machine or Windows Backup to back that stuff up. The takeaway is this: your footage needs to be at least 2 locations at all times. Now we need to talk about the third off-site drive, the kind of last piece of this puzzle. For me personally, I have a third drive that acts as a mirrored copy of my first drive and a mirrored copy of my second drive, right? It's a third identical copy to the first 2. The difference is that this third drive does never, ever with the first 2 drives. And all 3 drives are never in one room at the same time. And this is super key. You don't want some catastrophic disaster to strike and you lose some big part of your life, right? And you also lose your ability to make income because you lose your hard drive and you can no longer deliver those images to a client. So this third drive is gonna live at a friend's house. This third drive is gonna live somewhere away from the other ones, maybe at work in a drawer. Who knows where that third drive lives, but it's gonna live away from the others. And then once a month for me, I'm gonna bring that third drive home and I'm gonna bring my second drive and put it where the third drive was. They kind of do a swap. And then for a few months or for a month, basically one drive works the other job, the other drive works the other job, and then I bring them back. And I keep swapping drives 2 and drives 3. Now, I know a lot of photographers whose third drive, we could say that in quotation marks, is a cloud backup. They have basically their main photo drive backs up using something like Backblaze to the cloud, and they use that as their third offsite system. That's totally fine as well, just as long as you have something that's offsite that can be trusted in the event that, say someone steals your camera bag and they take your main drive and your backup drive, you want something else out there to keep you safe. Now, finally, we need to talk about those accessory files, things like project files, catalogs, LUTs, all those extra stuff, the stuff that comes along with presets, all that stuff. For the most part, most programs store that information on your internal hard drive. So I also am a huge proponent of backing up what's on your internal, because that backs up the accessory files. It also backs up your business documents, your email, stuff like that. Things that you wouldn't really want to lose in the event of your internal failing. What's really nice about this is programs like OneDrive on PC or iCloud on a Mac can actually do this automatically for you, and that's a really great option. I do recommend paying for more storage from Microsoft or from Apple to help facilitate that process, but that can be a really great way to do this on a cloud system. If not, both Windows and Apple have really great backup utilities built into their operating system. Apple calls theirs Time Machine, Windows calls theirs Windows Backup. And both of those programs will do a great job taking care of copying all of your system files, including documents, all that stuff, over to an external hard drive. Me personally, I do both things. I use Time Machine on my Mac to make a physical backup copy to another external hard drive, and I also let iCloud on my Mac back all of my internal hard drive stuff up to the cloud. That costs me about $4, $5 a month, but I think the peace of mind that that gives is well worth the added cost. And if you guys are looking for more detail on these, I've actually linked a few videos down in the description that go over some of these processes. And backing up is something that I'm really passionate about, as passionate as you can be about backing up, but it's something that I really care about. It's something that I really, I try to personally never lose a file, and I actually never have. I've had multiple hard drives die, but I've never lost anything super important, obviously. Make sure that doesn't happen, right? But with that said, this takes diligence, and this takes using it, and this takes understanding it. And I wanna just say that I'm willing to make more videos. In fact, I'm planning on making more videos that go into all of this in detail. Think of this video as the overview, and then we're gonna make additional videos that go over the different tools and techniques needed to complete this entire backup strategy. So check the links down in the description if you want to learn more about some specifics of this, and in the future, hit subscribe to learn more, because because we're gonna be putting out future videos that go into the specifics of different types of backing up with different programs, how to keep things safe with Lightroom, how to keep things safe with Premiere, how to keep things safe with all the different programs we use as photographers. If you like this video, I'd really like you hitting that like button, hit subscribe obviously to stay up to date with future videos, and lastly, in the comment section, leave any questions you might have. I will catch you all in the next one.